Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Kiravanachari Yamuna Kiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Ashtotra Shatashisha Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Ashtotra Shatashisha His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Nam Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Primsa Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Shamakun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Yamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Smavita Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Gora Pramanande Hare Hare Bol All glories to the sum of devotees Hare Krishna All glories to the sum of devotees Hare Krishna All glories to the sum of devotees Hare Krishna All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga All glories to Srila Prabhupada Could you pull it up? Yes. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 9, text number 18 and also 19. We'll chant 18 together. Yasmat bibheme aham api dvi para ardha dishnyam adyasitaha sakala loka Namaskritam yat tepe tapaha bahu savaha avarutsamanaha. You could leave this. Because I think Guru Maharaj will wear this. He's what? I think Guru Maharaj will wear this. So you could just...
Is he giving... No, he's not going to wear it. He's just going to have him observe.
Oh, for the fragrance. Oh, there's no fragrance. Well, better not to give it to me then. And have, yeah. Tasmai Namaha Bhagavate Adimakaya Tabhyam Yasmat Bhibhimyaham Api. How does it go? Yasmat Bhibhimyaham Api Dviparardha Dishnyam Adhyasita Sakala Loka Namaskritam Yat Tepi Tapo Bahusavo Varurutsamanas Tasmai Namo Bhagavate Dhimakaya Tobhyam Yasmad Bhibhimi Aham Api Dviparardha Dishnyam Adhyasita Sakala Loka Namaskritam Yat Tepi Tapo Bahusavo Varurutsamanas Tasmai Namo Bhagavate Dhimakaya Tobhyam Yasmad Bhibhimi Aham Api Dviparardha Dishnyam Adhyasita Sakala Loka Namaskritam Yat Tepi Tapo Bahusavo Varurutsamanas Tasmai Namo Bhagavate Dhimakaya Tobhyam Yasmad Bhibhimi Aham Api Dviparardha Dishnyam Adhyasita Sakala Loka Namaskritam Yat Tepi Tapo Bahusavo Varurutsamanas Tasmai Namo Bhagavate Dhimakaya Tobhyam Mataji's?
Adhyasita Sakala Loka Namaskritam Yat Tepe Tapo Bahusavo Varurutsamanas Tasmai Namo Bhagavate Dhimakaya Tubhyam Yasmad Bibhemya Hamapi Dviparardha Dhishyam Adhyasita Sakala Loka Namaskritam Yat Tepe Tapo Bahusavo Varurutsamanas Tasmai Namo Bhagavate Dhimakaya Tubhyam
Yasmat bibhemi hamapi dvivararda dishnyam adhyasita sakala loka namaskritam yat tepi tapo bahusavo varurut samanas tasmai namo bhagavati demakaya tobhyam. Yasmat, from whom? Bibhemi, fear. Aham, I. Api, also. Dvipara ardha, up to the limit of 4,300,000. Oh, 4,300,000,000. Times 2, times 30, times 12, times 100 solar years. We'll just skip that one. Dishnyam, place. Adhyasitaha, situated in. Sakala loka, all other planets. Namaskritam, honored by. Yat, that. Tepe, underwent. Tapaha, penances. Bahusavaha, many, many years. Avarurut samanaha, desiring to obtain you. Tasmai, unto him. Namaha, I do offer my obeisances. Bhagavate, unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Adimakaya, unto him who is the enjoyer of all sacrifices. Tuabhyam, unto your lordship. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Your lordship, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, who are indefatigable time and the enjoyer of all sacrifices. Although I am situated in an abode which will continue to exist for a time duration of 2 parardhas, though I am the leader of all other planets in the universe, and although I have undergone many, many years of penance for self-realization, still I offer my respects unto you. Brahma is the greatest personality in the universe because he is the longest duration of life. He is the most respectable personality because of his penance, influence, prestige, etc. And still, he has to offer his respectful obeisances unto the Lord. Therefore, it is incumbent upon all others who are far, far below the standard of Brahma to do as he did and to offer respects as a matter of duty. I'll read 19 as well. Tiryan manushya vibudha-dishu jivayo nishva atmechayatma kritasetu paripsayayaha remi narasta vishayopi avarudhadehas tasmai namo bhagavate purushottamaya. O my Lord, by your own will you appear in the various species of living entities, among animals lower than human beings, as well as among the demigods, to perform your transcendental pastimes. You are not affected by material contamination. You come just to fulfill the obligations of your own principles of religion, and therefore, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, I offer my obeisances unto you for manifesting such different forms. Purport. The Lord's incarnation and different species of life are all transcendental. He appears as a human being in his incarnations of Krishna, Rama, etc., but he is not a human being. Anyone who mistakes him for an ordinary human being is certainly not very intelligent, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, avajananti mamudha manushim tanamashritam. The same principle is applicable when he appears as the hog or fish incarnations. They are transcendental forms of the Lord and are manifested under certain necessities of his own pleasure and pastimes. Such manifestations of the transcendental forms of the Lord are accepted by him mostly to enliven his devotees. All his incarnations are manifested whenever there is a need to deliver his devotees and maintain his own principles. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gananjana Shlakaya Chakshura Unmilitamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Vishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Tapara Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Amscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vidam Tam Jivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Prijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shivashakan Vidamshcha He Krishna Kuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpati Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhi Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranama Mehari Priya Vanchakapatu Vishta Kripasindu Bhivajapatita Nam Pavane Bhyo Vaishnavi Bhyo Namo Namaha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Puttarishmati Bhakti Vikasa Swami Nitinamane Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Puttarishmati Bhakti Vikasa Swami Nitinamane Namaste Sarasvati Devi Gauravani Pasharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashikati Adeshitarne Bhutir Mahadbiri Mafbor Vibor Nirmaya Shati Yadamusha Purasha Bhungti Gunan Shurasha Shura Shatmaka Sarangashishta Bhagavan Vachamsi Me. So I'll just read. Oh, whoops. Okay. I'll just read the translations once more. I'll just go systematically. Your Lordship, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you who are indefatigable time and the enjoyer of all sacrifices. Although I am situated in an abode which will continue to exist for a time duration of 2 paragdas, although I am the leader of all other planets in the universe, and although I have undergone many, many years of penance for self-realization, still I offer my respects unto you. So we're in the midst of Brahma's prayers. Yesterday we heard about time. He was glorifying Krishna as time. So he's speaking here in these 2 verses, actually. He's also, well, specifically this verse I just read, he's also speaking about this time. Krishna appears in the form of time. He calls him here your indefatigable time, your time itself, and that time itself, it annihilates everything, including Lord Brahma and his own Dishnam, his own place is translated here. He is situated in a place that is, he gives the calculation, up to the limit of 4 billion, 300 million times 2 times 30 times 12 times 100 solar years. So that's a very long time. Nevertheless, he still fears time because he's subject to time, and time is it's able to destroy even Brahma. Even though Brahma, he has such a great lifespan, still he's under the control of indefatigable. Indefatigable means it's unable to be stopped. It doesn't slow down. Time doesn't slow down for anybody. Time may be the only thing in this world that doesn't slow down. You could think of it like that. Everything else, all the material elements, they're subject to the six changes. They're born, etc. They grow, and eventually they diminish. So material things, gross matter typically, and even the mind also to an extent functions like this. The mind is different in youth and then it slows down in old age. But time doesn't stop. Time keeps going. And time, nothing can slow down time. You can't go back in time, and you can't do anything about time. Nor can you speed up time. Sometimes, at different times, we want different manifestation of times. Sometimes we want time to go by slowly, and we want to enjoy something, or want to drag something out. Say, different things. Karmis want to enjoy their vacation, or our spiritual masters here, we want to bask in his association. As well as festivals, we want those things to go on. So we want time to slow down. Reversely, sometimes we want time to speed up. Sometimes we're in the midst of suffering, or we're undergoing something which is not pleasing. We're in some sort of limbo state or something like that. So sometimes we want the time factor to speed up, but it doesn't speed up nor does it slow down. It just is. It just continues on whether we want it or not. We may be in a very good situation. We may be in a very bad situation. Time will destroy both of those things. If we're in a very good situation, things will change. We live in this life a span of utmost 100 years, though that's quite rare. I think life expectancy in America is something like 70, something like that, or slightly high 60s, something like that. So not quite long, and America is pretty high. So not that long, actually. Nevertheless, it seems like a long time in the respect, because time, it can make it seem that way. Nevertheless, different people, time doesn't speed up nor slow down. Sometimes we perceive it like that. But so I'm just making the point, this indefatigable time is Krishna. You can't do anything about time because it's Krishna. Krishna is, he's what is that? Ajaya. He's unable to be conquered. He cannot be overcome by anybody except technically he's a devotee by his love. But other than that, Krishna allows himself to become conquered in such a situation. Otherwise, he's unable to be conquered. So, time, being a form of Krishna, Kala, is like this, is the same quality that it can't be overcome. Only by Krishna's grace can a devotee overcome the influence of time. Where we hear in the spiritual world, where everything is not afflicted by time the same way the material world is. Time doesn't have the degrading influence upon everything. So, Brahma is offering his prayers in this way, examining his own situation. And then he says, so he's situated in an abode. That abode is Dishyam Adhyasita Sakala Loka Namaskritam. So that abode, that abode will continue for a long time. And Brahma and that abode itself, it's offered obeisances by here, how does it come? I'm the leader of all other planets in the universe. Yeah, literally, if you look at the word for word, Sakala Loka Namaskritam, yet the whole world, all other planets are looking up to and offering obeisances to Lord Brahma and also his Loka. He's respected, Lord Brahma, he's respected by everybody. In this world, we don't really have anybody like that. Even the demons, to an extent, they respect Lord Brahma. Of course, there's stories in the Bhagavatam where kind of goes against that, but generally Lord Brahma is respected by all because Lord Brahma is the grandfather of everybody. It's just like, yeah, you can understand immediately. Everybody honors their grandfather in civilized culture, even if there are differences even if there's complaints against the grandfather, still you show him a degree of respect. So Brahma, he's dear. He's dear to everybody. Dear Janapriyo. He's dear to both those who are demonic and also those who are pious, you can say, who have controlled their senses. So everybody's looking up to Brahma, and specifically Namaskritam. They not only respect him, they offer them obeisances. Everybody offers Lord Brahma obeisances because he's the senior within the universal family. Spiritually as well, he's the senior. He's the spiritual authority within the universe. Krishna personally imparted him the Vedas. And then Lord Brahma, he dissipated the Vedas throughout the universe onto different branches like that. So Lord Brahma is a spiritual authority. He's also a material authority. So everybody offers Lord Brahma obeisances. We have the story we read in the second canto in the beginning, or around the middle, where Narada asks Lord Brahma, his father, Brahma, who's supreme, and Lord Brahma here applies something to the effect that I offer my obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by whose influence, by whose external energy, other people are induced to think that I am supreme and offer obeisances unto me. So people are offering obeisances unto Lord Brahma within the universe, here on earth not so much. But even Lord Brahma, he is offering obeisances to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Generally, here on earth, worship of Brahma is a little rare. You don't really see someone. He's respected, but worship, generally you see 5 principal demigods were Surya, Shiva, Ganesh, Vishnu. I'm missing 2. Surya, Shiva, Ganesh, Vishnu, Durga. Generally, they're worshipped. Not so much Brahma. Sometimes Brahma is thrown in there, but usually not. So these are 5, you could say, principal demigods, although Vishnu is not a demigod. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Brahma, not some worship, but within the universe, he's worshipped. So Sakala Loka, this word comes. All other planets are worshiping Brahma, but Brahma, he worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Not only that, Brahma, he's very learned. He's very smart. He's the smartest living entity in the universe. There are many reasons Brahma is great. Here, he says, Prabhupada writes, he's the greatest. Why? Because he has the longest duration of life. There are different aspects of respect afforded to a person. If a person is very, in different degrees too, if somebody, obviously who have the 6 opulences, Aishvarya, Samagra, Savirya, etc. So if somebody has one of these opulences, generally we offer them respect. It's just like somebody who's very beautiful, they get respect. Even if they're horrible, their personality is horrible. It's been shown that people who are very beautiful, they get respect from other people. Other people respect them. More respectable than just beauty is knowledge. Somebody who's very learned, they also command a certain degree of respect. So similarly to somebody who has a great amount of wealth, they also command some degree of respect. So based upon, if one has one of these opulences, one commands a certain, or is entitled to, we could say, frankly, a degree of respect. It's just like if somebody's very learned, we respect them naturally because they've been cultivating that. Or even if one is born into a particular aristocratic family, we respect that because that's their karma. Although materialists, they're envious of that generally. Devotees, we can understand that one is situated in a particular position based upon karma. Just like one may be, we have in the West, we have leaders, presidents, etc. like that, governors, senators. So we respect them because Krishna gave them that. Although they're mlechas, Krishna gave them their respective position. Krishna appointed them to that post. So they're afforded respect on that basis, based upon their, because they've executed the austerities, and they've got that result. And so their respect is there. So one such other form of respect is just age, at least within Vedic culture. Western culture a little bit, not so much, more within Vedic culture. If somebody is elderly, they're afforded respect. Western culture is more the opposite. Generally, young people are thought of as advanced or progressive, and older people are thought as stuck in their ways. But Vedic culture is just the flip opposite, that elders are offered respect. So, if we take age as a consideration, Brahma is the most respectable in terms of age because he's the oldest. He's been here since the universe was created. So it's just like within a family, the most respect is offered to the most senior member, typically. So Brahma is the most senior member of the universal family. Here, that's what it means here, because he has the longest duration of life. Also, he's been awarded by the Supreme Lord with a long duration of life. He's been blessed with that. He's the most respectable personality, just like I was explaining. Why? Because of his penance, influence, prestige, etc. So Brahma has everything. As far as living entities go, nobody surpasses what Brahma has. Even Hiranyakashipu, who cultivated opulences, who underwent austerities, who gained Svargaloka, still, he didn't exactly achieve what Lord Brahma achieved. Lord Brahma never came subordinate to him. He never, for example, Hiranyakashipu, he underwent austerities that frightened the demigods in Svarga, but Lord Brahma underwent austerities for thousands and thousands of celestial years, and as a result of those austerities, he gained darshan of Krishna. So those austerities are unlimitedly greater than those austerities of Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu, he governed, you could say, Svargaloka downwards, but Lord Brahma, he didn't reach Brahmaloka. He reached Indraloka. So even those who achieve, who are elevated by dint of material austerities, Lord Brahma is even greater than them. Because Krishna is personally, Hiranyakashipu was granted those benedictions by Lord Brahma, but Lord Brahma, he was granted his position and power directly by Krishna himself because of his janma karma. So, within the material universe, he's one word. It comes in Chaitanya Charitamrita, is popular among the Madhvas, Jivottama. Jiva Uttama, Lord Brahma is the highest living entity within the universe. They use this word differently too for Vayu. They also call him like that. But Lord Brahma is the highest living entity within the universe. He's the most elevated living entity, the most pious living entity within the universe. And not just piety, it could be piety, but that piety also comes along with the devotional service. Means following Varnashram principles perfectly. I think Srila Prabhupada writes somewhere in the Bhagavatam, if one lives as a perfect Brahmana following Varnashram principles for 100 births, he attains to the post of Lord Brahma. And when the conditioned soul also enters into the universe, coming from the spiritual world, he attains the post of Brahma. You can imagine how exalted a position it is. You're coming straight, although the spiritual soul we think of it, they fall down from the spiritual world. And in another sense, somebody's coming from the spiritual world based upon their desire, and they're entering into the material world, and Krishna gives them what position? That of the Brahma, coming straight from the spiritual world into Lord Brahma's position. It's a pretty exalted position. So Lord Brahma, he has all these things: penance, influence, prestige. Everybody knows about Brahma, as long as you're not sinful. Even those sinful demons, Vedically speaking, they still understand who Brahma is. Influence. He's very influential, just like he came and he asked, who is that? Anyways, there's so many instances. Lord Brahma requesting different people, giving advice throughout the Bhagavatam. He requested that one king, I forget his name, to marry, and the king did so simply on the request of Lord Brahma. Sometimes he's disrespected or disobeyed, just like we have in the case of the four Kumaras, who ignored Lord Brahma's order. But generally, he's respected. And penance, we hear of Lord Brahma's penance. We've heard about it twice. 3 times, actually, it's come. Tini Brahma Hridaya Adikavya Mohyanti Yat Surya. Again, in the second canto, we hear of Lord Brahma's austerities in the chapter Sloki Bhagavatam. And then again, we're hearing here the same thing, how Lord Brahma in the beginning, he underwent austerities. Although these austerities are a little different. He wants to recreate the universe. So we're hearing about Lord Brahma's penances multiple times. So he has all these things. Still, he has to offer his obeisances unto the Lord. Because Krishna, Lord Brahma has all these things to an unimaginable extent. But Krishna, if Lord Brahma has this, how much more so does Krishna have these things? Of Lord Brahma, he is austere, we can say. How much more austere is Krishna? If Lord Brahma is very influential or very powerful, he was the sub-creator of all the different species of life. Then what to speak of Krishna? How much greater is he? How much more of a greater creator is Krishna himself? Therefore, Lord Brahma, who is above all others, he offers his respects unto Krishna, and it's incumbent upon all others, Srila Prabhupada writes here, who are far, far below the standard of Brahma, to do as he did and to offer respects as a matter of duty. So, as great men do, others follow. So Brahma is setting an example for all the world to follow. Lord Brahma, he offers his respects as a matter of duty, as his dharma. You could take it 2 ways. One, he's doing so because he understands that, at least our Lord Brahma, he understands that he's part and parcel of Krishna, and he offers his obeisances to Krishna because that's his duty as a jiva to do so. Another thing is that had he not do so, just like Krishna says in the Gita, all the world will follow his example, because Lord Brahma is the spiritual master, he's Jagat Guru, he's the spiritual master of the universe. So as Lord Brahma does, others will follow that. So Lord Brahma is offering his obeisances to both, because it's his duty, and also to teach others. It's very important. Just by, we speak about this often in devotional service, setting an example by one's own behavior is just like so many things. By his practical, just like we have this word acharya. By means achar means like what can mean different things, but it means behavior. You can take it like that. And so acharya is one who teaches by his behavior. Generally, we translate from Srila Prabhupada gives that translation. So he teaches by his behavior, meaning he shows others what to do, but also by his own behavior, he shows what to do. He shows practically what to do. Had an acharya, had a teacher or a guru or anybody, if they say one thing or do another, then it's not a very respectable teacher, or we can't really accept that person as a teacher. If a teacher is telling us that for anything, that you draw, in order to write the letter T, you draw a line and then you dot it, but then you see how he's drawing his T's and he's writing it as a circle. Well, he's not a very credible teacher. How can we accept him as a teacher? Because he's not acting according to how he's teaching us. Other people have imperfect... there's different grades of teachers. You could go through them. Some people may be good teachers, but they may not act properly. Some people can teach, but some people can act, but they don't know how to teach. Brahma is the perfect personality because he can teach perfectly, and also his acts are in accordance with those teachings. So devotees, the spiritual master obviously does this. He's acting not just, it's a bigger discussion. Generally we accept the spiritual master's words above all. His Vani is the most important thing. And the behavior, it substantiates the Vani to an extent, his instructions to an extent. But at the same time, we have this verse, which I never memorized. It goes something like, Vaishnava Kriya Mudra, something na puja. You can't understand the activities of a Vaishnava. Simply by observing the activities of a Vaishnava, externally, you can't understand all those things just by the behavior. For example, and there can be contradictions sometimes too, with elevated Vaishnavas, we'll qualify that, and what they do. For example, Srila Prabhupada taught us to offer prasad. and he was very strict about that with his disciples, though sometimes it would be seen, we hear stories of Srila Prabhupada's disciples saying, relating how Srila Prabhupada would sometimes take unoffered foodstuffs straight from the kitchen. He would be in the kitchen and he would honor. So it's hard to understand these things, why he may act like he did. So therefore, both things have to be taken into account. The teachings are given priority. Simultaneously, you should observe how those teachings, and again, there's exceptions, there's general behavior, there's exceptional behavior, etc. like this. So, but anyway, this is part of a bigger discussion I won't get into. But the generic principle is that Brahma, he's showing the standard by which how to act for all living entities. Otherwise, had he not, people won't follow these things. If not just spiritual master, if as devotees or anybody, we say one thing but do another, people won't care for that. If we say you should read Srila Prabhupada's book, it's just like in the Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, Srila Prabhupada, he gives the example that that somebody who is smoking, he can't tell other people not to give up smoking, something like that. They won't be taken seriously. So similarly too, if we tell people to be detached from sense gratification, but we are ourselves visibly attached to sense gratification, it won't have an effect, even though we're speaking Krishna conscious philosophy. So too, if we're encouraging so many different things within Krishna consciousness, we hear devotees often encourage other devotees to read the books, and emphasis is given on that. But equally as important as emphasizing that is reading the books ourselves. If we don't read the books ourselves, then encouraging others to read the books won't have a practical effect. So many other things. Coming to Mangalarti, etc. like that, it's important to do so ourselves by our practical behavior. And that practical behavior, it sets an example for others. Even one may not be encouraging these things openly or preaching these things, you could say like that. Just by one's practical behavior, it gives an example for others how to act. So acharyas act like this. By their behavior, they teach others, even though they may not always do so by direct instructions. So anyway, that's a bigger conversation. But so Lord Brahma is doing this. He's offering his respects unto Krishna as a matter of duty. This is the explanation of the duty that's being explained here. Then the other verse, that took some time, so I'll try to make it a little succinct. So it's a nice verse. Tiryan manushya vibudha deshu jiva yoneshva atme chayatma krita settu paripsayayaha. A similar verse comes in, well, I'll just read the translation for remembrance. O my Lord, by your own will, you appear in the various species of living entities, among animals lower than human beings, as well as among the demigods, to perform your transcendental pastimes. You are not affected by material contamination. You come just to fulfill the obligations of your own principles of religion, and therefore, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, I offer my obeisances unto you for manifesting such different forms. So Lord Brahma is feeling grateful that the Supreme Lord manifests these different forms. And why does he manifest these forms? He gives the reasons. But I just want to reference this one verse. Janmakaramacha vishvatman ajasyakarturatmana tiryan nurishishu yadasu tat atyanta vidambanam. Similar thing, tiryan nurishishu among animals and men. Kunti, she prays this. Of course it is bewildering, directly to Krishna. Of course it is bewildering, O soul of the universe, that you work though you are inactive, and that you take birth though you are the vital force and the unborn. You yourself descend among aquatics, animals, men, sages, and aquatics. Verily, this is bewildering. So, it's similar. That the Supreme Lord, he appears in all species of life. Not just human beings. Of course, here, Srila Prabhupada explains that Krishna, Rama, they appear like human beings, but they're not human beings. They're completely different from human beings. Elsewhere, the demigods in Garbhastuti, they offer this: Matyachva kachepa nrisimha varaha hamsa rajanya vipra vibhuti shikritavataaraha tvampasinas tri bhuvanam chayithadunesha bharam bhavohara yuditanam vandanam te. O Supreme Controller, your Lordship previously accepted incarnations as a fish, a horse, a tortoise, Narasimhadev, a boar, a swan, Lord Ramachandra, Parashurama, and among the demigods of Vamanadev, to protect the entire world by your mercy. Now please protect us again by your mercy by diminishing the disturbances in this world. O Krishna, best of the Yadus, we respectfully offer obeisances unto you. So anyway, there's purport here too. But the point here is that the Lord appears in all species of life, even among the vegetable tribes. Srila Prabhupada writes in the first canto somewhere. So there's unlimited incarnations of Krishna, and they appear in all different varieties of species. We have here aquatics, a fish, demigods, Vamanadev. Also, you could take it Narada Rishi. He also appears. Krishna, Narada is a Shaktivesh avatar. The Kumara is also considered a Shaktivesh avatar. They're considered not exactly rishis, but they're among that sort of tattva there. So there's so many different species of life, and the Supreme Lord appears in those species. These are just practical examples. Back to this verse. So why does he appear in these species? In different species, he establishes the principles of religion. Sometimes within the society itself, just like Krishna Rama, they appeared in human society. They established dharma within human society. The universe, generally, you could take it like that, but specifically human society, Krishna rid the earth of the overburdening kings which were currently there. Lord Ramachandra, he killed Ravana and his party that was inhabiting Lanka, etc. like that. Others do differently. We hear Vamanadev, he restored order within the heavenly planets because Bali Maharaj had taken the throne, Aditya, which wasn't necessarily bad in and of itself, but he did his activities up there, not necessarily affected the middle or lower planetary systems. Similarly, or it can overlap, Lord Nrsimhadev, he appeared as a half-man, half-lion, but where did he appear? Well, it's stated differently. So far, I understand, within this universe, he appeared in the heavenly planets. And we have the narration of Nrsimhadev killing Hiranyakashipu, who was situated in Indra's palace. So as far as my understanding, that took place. Even though the Lord appeared in a species that doesn't necessarily have place there, though they may have heavenly sort of bodies like that, he made waves in the demigod society. So the Lord appears in different species, and he delivers respective species, but maybe he appears in different species and affects another species, so it's not exactly stereotyped. So Srila Prabhupada's translation, if I'm on the right verse, the Lord's incarnations, so whatever the Lord does is transcendental. Whether it's this species, that species, whatever we hear this often, whether Srila Prabhupada often makes the point that Krishna, he accepts the form of the boar, but it's not that he becomes contaminated by accepting such a form. Therefore, Lord Brahma, he clarifies this. You are not affected by material contamination. You accept all these forms, but you are not affected like them. You don't become like a mundane hog by accepting the form of a raha. You don't become affected by the mode of goodness even by accepting the form of Narayana Rishi. Rishis, they're affected by the mode of goodness. Boars, hogs, etc. like that. Fish, they're affected by the mode of ignorance, being animals. But the Supreme Lord isn't affected like this. He accepts this. So why does he accept these forms? Common point. He accepts yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutadam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham, to reestablish dharma. He advents himself. And then Pratranaya sadhunam vinashaya duskritam, to protect the sadhus, devotees, and to annihilate the demons, he appears, common reasons. The same thing is repeated here. Bhagavatam is an expansion of Bhagavad Gita. Chaitanya Charitamrita is expanded even more. So the same things you'll find in Bhagavatam, the same things are reiterated in Gita nutshell form. Srila Prabhupada clarifies here that, so there's different reasons. Two reasons are listed here, although they're complementary. The transcendental forms of the Lord are manifested under certain necessities of his own pleasure and pastimes. So because his own, actually here, it comes in the verse itself. Atma ichaya atma krita. Basically you can translate that. His own necessities. By his own will, he self-advents himself. He's not forced to advent by any sort of external force. Rather, just out of his will, Krishna comes and he takes on these forms. Why? Because of his pleasure. We were hearing recently, a couple of verses ago, the commentary was explaining that he comes to this world to enjoy rasa. He interfaces with the material energy to enjoy rasa. Two ways, Garbhadakashaya Vishnu, he does so. He enjoys rasa like that. Also, Krishna comes to this world. That verse could be taken like that, that Krishna comes to this world. Why? To enjoy the rasa dance. So, different reasons can be given. Ultimately, is Krishna's pleasure. One aspect of Krishna's pleasure, we've covered many, many times, is to give pleasure to his devotees. To, as he says here, mostly to enliven his devotees. There's one verse, what is that? Grinanti, Shrivanti Gayanti Grinanti Abhikshnasa, Smaranti Nandanti Tavitam Janaha, Teva Pashanti Achiri Natavakam. I forget the last line. That the Lord, He comes to this world to renovate devotional principles of hearing, chanting, etc., like that, for the sake of His devotees, on behalf of His devotees. So, this is one such reason why the Lord comes, mainly to enliven His devotees. So, for His own pleasure and His own pastimes, one and the same, and also to enliven His devotees. And also His devotees are enlivened by those pastimes, and the Lord also gets pleasure from seeing His devotees enlivened. So everything is complementary, in other words. There are different reasons in one sense, but in another sense, it's the same reason. All His incarnations are manifest whenever there is a need to deliver His devotees and to maintain His own principles. You could take it like that, just like, for example, Nrsimha advented to deliver Prahlad, but that wasn't necessary. Hiranyakashipu, he could have been killed by other means, even just by anything. It's just like so many people every single day, they have heart attacks. Krishna can kill anybody just like that. He doesn't have to advent personally. So more than just protecting, we hear here of a need to deliver His devotees, although Krishna always has the capacity to deliver His devotees. He doesn't have to come personally to deliver His devotees. Nor does He have to maintain His own principles. Principles can be maintained even by sending devotees to this world to uphold dharma, to reestablish dharma. The Supreme Lord sends His representatives, different acharyas, to reestablish dharmic principles within society. So more so than these, so these are valid reasons. You could say lower levels of understanding, higher level of understanding is that He's just come to this world to enjoy rasa with His devotee. So I can end my class there. Those are the points, I think. Yeah, these are what Lord Brahma has spoken here. So I'll end my class there, these two verses. If anybody has any comments or questions, I can take it. Yes.
I don't really have a clear understanding of like when one should reject a superior or spiritual master or something. Like we were talking about what it just came to my mind because Lord Brahma did that.
Yeah.
One activity, so then it's like Leela, but then I don't know for
What, chasing after? You're referring to that? Yeah.
That for our practical use, at what point do you reject a senior or a spiritual master or something like that?
Yeah, our spiritual master has given whole lectures on this. Is a little complicated. It's different situations. It's quite a rare situation now that we don't so much have to deal with it anymore. So the question is less topical. But typically in the case of gross fall down, could be. It depends on a certain individual. I know, for example, there's individuals who their spiritual master has had issues in devotional service, but again, they've stuck to their spiritual master, nevertheless, because the spiritual master hasn't gone away from Krishna consciousness. So it could be such a case. And it doesn't invalidate all the advice and instruction, etc., the spiritual master has given that particular disciple, and it doesn't invalidate his diksha, for example. That is eternal. So, in what case do we reject? Well, it's a complicated question. If you want to understand it in detail, you could listen to those Guru Issues lectures, but succinctly, so far I understand, if somebody is grossly deviated from Sampradaya teachings, then it's good to reject. It's just like the famous example we hear of rejection in the Bhagavatam. Bali Maharaj, he rejected Shukracharya because he was bahirmukha. He was averse to Krishna consciousness. So if that aversion to Krishna consciousness is there, then you reject. And it's definitely so. In other cases, it has to be seen. It has to be seen in other cases, exactly what's going on. It's a nuanced issue. Is that okay?
Is there any possibility that one who falls from the spiritual world goes to something other than Lord Brahma is always going to go to Lord Brahma's position?
So far I understand it's what we have. Yeah. Generally, the thing is, if one falls in the sense of a jiva falling down from the spiritual world, we have Jai and Vijay falling, but they didn't really fall like a jiva falls. That was their own pastime, actually. And actually, they still they came down to the material world, and still they remained in Vaikuntha. Actually, you find this in if you see in the 7th canto, somewhere 7th or 8th canto, the doorkeepers of Vaikuntha are described, and Jai and Vijay are there. And there's a commentary there explaining that Jai and Vijay are there because they both were there and they were also down here at the same time. So they never really fell; they just expanded. So anyway, that's different. So that's not really worth mentioning. But if somebody actually falls, generally, so far I understand, because according to that commentary Srila Prabhupada gave, they come as Lord Brahma. Obviously, there's innumerable universes. And if the living entity so desires a specific... The thing is, the living entity comes to the material world because he wants to enjoy separately. And that enjoyment, it has its utmost. I mean, if the living entity is looking for name, fame, prestige, etc., well, Lord Brahma has that to the utmost degree. I mean, like, that you can get in the material world. So it makes sense they're entering into the body of Lord Brahma. It's not very sensible that somebody from the spiritual world will come to the material world to accept the body of a hog, for instance. Because... I mean, in one sense, they're an illusion, but they're not in such like gross illusion they can't understand like that. So far I understand they accept the body of the Lord Brahma. Another thing about Brahma, I was just thinking, is that yes, he did that, but one thing, so far my memory goes, he just chased. Nothing actually happened. And then in shame of that, he cast off that body. So there was also repentance there, which is another good point. Just like we have that verse that... what is that? How does that go? Abhichitsu duracharo bhajanti mam ananyapak sadhur eva samantyavya. They remain sadhus. They remain saintly. Sadhu means one who is associated with Shastra. The word is derived from that. So, I mean, the Lord of Brahma remained a sadhu. So... It's not he necessarily fell down from his position. Even if you take it like that, he cast the whole mental body off. I mean, the whole mindset was gone. So that's another thing, just elaborating on that specific instance.
You can ask your question.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Hey, Prabhu, we were speaking about an acharya
Yeah.
and how they teach by example. Have you heard of this saying, do as I say, not as I do?
Yeah, it's an English phrase.
Explain that in regards to an acharya, because it seems like it's almost a way for someone to like act foolishly. I was trying to understand that statement, but maybe you could speak on it a little bit.
Yeah. Do as I say, not as I do. Just like I was explaining earlier, where Srila Prabhupada's version was, do as I am doing. We have that quote there. So that was Srila Prabhupada's idea of that. I was explaining earlier, there's different grades of teachers. Lower grade teachers would tell you, do as I say, not as I do, because they can't act properly, or they don't have, or different things can come up. Just like sometimes people know how to do so. Oh, good example. Somebody knows how to play mridanga, and they may do so in an improper technique, or whatever it may be. We'll just take the example. So they may instruct you in a particular way, but they themselves may not have proper knowledge of how to play. So imperfect teacher, they don't know how to properly, they don't act properly themselves, although they think they can instruct. But so generally, if somebody says this, do as I say, not as I do, and it implies their behavior is faulty. Of course, there's like learning practical things, but generally this is spoken, at least I've heard it, in terms of like life experience, or somebody's like addicted to some sort of terrible activity, or committing their behavior is just off in some way or another. And they want to teach others by the fact that they don't want others to undergo that suffering. So that could be one such thing, but generally it's bogus. People who say such things, you can get instruction from such people by their behavior, just like an alcoholic can come up to me and say like, don't drink. Do as I say, do as I say, don't do as I do. Makes sense. Okay, I can understand your life is miserable because you're intoxicated. You're addicted to alcohol. So I will do as you say, and do as you say, not as you do, even though they may go on intoxicating. So it makes sense in such a situation, but such a person is a second or third class teacher, generally speaking. So it's an English idiom or saying. So anything else? No? Matajis? Anything there? 2. particularly in English, you have all these phrases which don't make sense, which aren't good advice. We have like, there's so many things, just like you can coin whatever. What is that? The secret to life is one thing. This is like a recent one. You just focus on one thing in life. But then we have varieties, the spice of life, jack of all trades, master. It's like phrases that, within English at least, that contradict themselves. So what are you supposed to accept? You just, at least with a Western mindset, you just pick whatever you choose. So, yes.
When you were making the point about, you didn't go so much into, but how you were saying, like, how we can't understand, you quoted that verse, but how you can't understand the activities of the Vaishnava.
Yeah.
It reminded me of that, I think, I don't know what the word you would say, but anyways, the narrative, for lack of better words, of that, when there's that doctor, and that student sees that the doctor takes, he helps the horse, so he hits the horse in the throat, because there was something that was stuck in the throat. And then the student goes and imitates it when they see that a horse was choking. They thought a horse was choking, so they imitate the same thing, but they actually end up killing the horse because they didn't actually understand why the teacher did what they did. So it reminded me of that. And then as you were talking about Lord Brahma giving up his body, could there be any comparison made, like how Chota Haridas, the purport that Prabhupada gives about Chota Haridas, and he expands upon like suicide when we fall from, devotional service. Could there be any comparison made in that regard to Lord Brahma giving up his body?
I'm not particularly. Do you know that purport by heart?
Not by heart, but I was reading the Transcendental Diaries last night, and so Harish Shori was, he was just quoting Prabhupada, expanding upon it a bit. And so Prabhupada, I remember in the purport, and Harish Shori retells that Prabhupada emphasizes the fact that when we fall from our standard of devotional service, commit some kind of abominable activity, that in of itself is the suicide.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, it's like that. That's worse than, in one sense, that's worse than suicide, or equally as worse. But I'll just expand upon that based upon my knowledge. I don't know the purport exactly, but in Chaitanya Charitamrita, so to speak on suicide. Suicide, so giving up, the proper way to repent for such things is to give up the mentality, as Lord Brahma did, cast off that mentality. That's a proper way to atone for it. Giving up the gross body by means of suicide isn't appropriate because there's two different explanations given in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Srila Sanatana Goswami, he wanted to commit suicide by throwing himself under the rat cart, and Lord Chaitanya stopped him, saying, I'm just paraphrasing, it goes something like this: you're thinking your body is your own, and you're trying to commit sense gratification in this way. And if you think just by committing suicide you can attain love of Krishna, then I, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, would have committed suicide long, long ago. But your body belongs to me, and I have so many things to do through that body, so much service to do through that body. So he chastised Sanatana Goswami for the idea of committing suicide. The thing is, the body doesn't belong to us, so we can't kill it. We can kill it if we so desire and become crazy. But the thing is, the better to use that body, surrender that rather than killing that body, which doesn't belong to us. Better to surrender that body to Krishna and engage in Krishna service as it's meant to be. It's just like if you steal money from the bank, in order to atone for that, you don't burn all the money. You return the money to the bank, ideally. So the same thing there. Another case. I'm thinking of something. Raghunath Das Goswami, he also went to Vrindavan with the idea of committing suicide, but he was stopped. I forget exactly how. I think the devotees there, he met the devotees there. So, Chota Haridas, of course, there's that there. Lord Chaitanya wanted to set an example, make a very strict thing. That's not to be followed. Srila Prabhupada explains, I'm sure you're aware of those conversations with Vishnujan Maharaj, who did such a thing. And then Srila Prabhupada was later very upset that he did such a thing. So, that's not to be followed. And the explanations are there. So, okay?
You were making the point about how sometimes people worship Lord Vishnu as the demigod.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering, what benefit they get from that, because worship of the demigods is usually on the material platform, but if we understand Lord Vishnu as the Supreme Personality and Godhead, do they get any Does it count as devotional service to any extent for him?
Well, you'll find different statements in Shastra about this. Those, even within Srila Prabhupada's books, you'll find different statements like this, that those who worship Vishnu without a correct idea or thinking Vishnu to be, okay, very good example. Somebody made, Shalagram worship is common in India among brahmanas. Smarta brahmanas particularly, too, they'll also worship Shalagram. But they may not, and they'll have some idea, but even some people may be worshiping Shalagram and thinking that a Shalagram is a stone. So, in the Padma Purana, it is stated that one who thinks Shalagram is no more than a stone, he's a resident of hell. It could be taken different ways. He has a hellish mentality. He's a resident of hell. Could also imply he's going to hell. So you'll find different statements like this. One who worships Vishnu on the same level as the demigods. What is that? How does it go? Vishnorya iha yesya. How does that verse go? Namaprad, don't know. Shivasya Shri Vishnu ya iha gunanamadi sakalam. Diyam binam pashit. How does that go? Sakalu harinama hitakaraha. So, for one who thinks that there is no bhina, no difference between Vishnu and Shiva, he's of lower grade intelligence, basically. There is no, such a thing is offensive. And we hear, for example, those who are offenders to the holy name, well, anyway, without getting onto that. So there's different statements in Shastra, and some are quite heavy. They're those who worship, etc., like that. You'll find a description of them going down to hell. Etc., like that. So there's statements like this. On the counterpoint, there's statements like every little bit of devotional service, even unknowingly, they benefit one. So there's two different kinds of statements, both of which may be valid to some degree. Some may be a little exaggerated, but ultimately they get some sort of benefit if they perform some sort of Vishnu worship. It's just like people, even unknowingly. So of course it's of different grades. Mayavadis, they get some sort of benefit, some minute amount of benefit by worshiping Vishnu, even with a Mayavadi conception, although largely not as a hellish mentality, but they get the results of their own attainment of jnana. Otherwise, they can't attain liberation without worship of Vishnu. Without some tinge of devotional service in one's life, one can't even get the results of fruitive activities or speculative knowledge. It's just like within Karmakanda, or just like, for example, this yagya we had. So the same yagya procedure you'll find, of course, different sampradayas do differently, but the same yagya procedure you'll find just as a Vedic homa is common within the Vedas. So you'll find many people performing homas like this, just for sheer material benefit. Now, in that homa, the names of Vishnu are chanted, amongst so many other things, and ultimately the offerings go to Vishnu. So there is some benefit that those people get, unknowingly so. So two different statements are there, but ultimately, in the ultimate sense, they do progress in devotional service. That's the whole idea behind Varnashrama society, is that people unknowingly, they gradually make advancement in devotional service. Although it may not directly be they come to, they make advancement in devotional service. For many people, that advancement is more just approaching, coming to the point where they can actually render devotional service. But nevertheless, there's benefit. That's explained many times in Srila Prabhupada's books. Like that. Is that okay? That's clear? Yes, one more.
I would just like to quote one verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. Akamaha sarva kamova moksha kama udarati tibrina bhakti yogina yajita purusha.
Yeah.
Yes, even one is having any sakama, any material desires, or he's not having any desires, just devotion or liberation, he should worship Lord Krishna.
Mm-hmm.
Remember it.
Yeah, there's many verses like that in the Bhagavatam. I was thinking there's some verse in the first chapter that it goes something like, even by unconsciously chanting the name of Vishnu, or whatever it may be, Krishna, one is delivered. So, that principle is there just by even unknowingly. Even if one is full of desires like that, as people are, and there's different grades. Some people may worship demigods and approach Vishnu, may approach Vishnu with thinking him to be a demigod or equal with Shiva, and approaching him for material benefits. So either Vishnu will give that, maybe, it's up to him, but they get benefit for doing so. It's better that they do so. At least some sort of Vishnu worship is there. So yeah, of course, you could clarify these. There's different, complicated question because there's two different angles. You'll find two different visions. There's statements from our acharyas, if I'm remembering right. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he has some statement where he says that those who worship on these 5 deities and thinking Vishnu is there, Vishnu doesn't manifest and they glide down to hell. So that's also there. So reconciling these two things, ultimately somehow or another, Vishnu is all purifying. Just like we chant this Om Apavitra Pavitra Va. How does that go? Yat Smarat Pundaryakshamsa. I'm forgetting it. Anyways, Vishnu is the supreme pure, and by associating with him, we become pure too. So that's that. It also depends upon mercy. That's another factor. Because it's not necessarily, when you boil it down, it's also not a mechanical process. So Krishna will reciprocate based upon the person. So if somebody is worshiping him with just material desires, thinking him as a demigod, he will likely reciprocate more than, for example, a Mayavadi doing so, looking to merge into him. So, like that. There's also degrees in all these things. So, okay? Yes?
Another thing that I heard in this regard was that, the liberation, all these boons that we hear, these transcendental boons that we hear about with chanting, it doesn't necessarily have to manifest in that life. It could be something that manifests in a few other lives.
Yeah, it's very common that the results of one activities generally aren't reaped in this life. Even particularly in personal liberation, is cultivated after many, many, many lives. Just like we have the Bahunam Janmanamante Gyanavan Mam Prapati. After many lives, one surrenders unto Krishna. But even after many lives, Mayavadis, proper Advaitavadis, they explain like this, because you can't, for example, it's impossible for an outcast to attain liberation. They have to elevate themselves to the varnashrams. So there's an understanding is there that generally these things come through multiple different lives. And if one is experiencing such a thing in his life, that's a result of many, many past austerities like that. So, okay? Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.